Are you too busy, too stressed out, unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Diane Randall. Welcome to the show that teaches the best inner tools and strategies to help you create the life you want. I want to thank you for listening, and if you are new to the show, welcome. It's so exciting to have you here listening. In today's episode of Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, I'm going to talk to my guest today about how to navigate the stress and anxiety in your busy life. How can you find freedom and inner peace with some simple techniques that you can incorporate in your life right away? How would you like to feel empowered in your life every day? So you'll want to listen until the very end. I am just elated to introduce you to today's guest, Stephanie Dalfonzo. Stephanie empowers people to say goodbye anxiety, hello freedom. Her first career was as Stevie Knox, a popular radio DJ during the 80s and early 90s. As her last radio job came to an end, her anxiety kicked into overdrive and into full-blown insomnia. Stephanie began researching holistic approaches to anxiety. Over 20 years later, she is an anxiety expert, speaker, certified hypnotist, yoga, and meditation teacher. Sharing inspirational empowerment with simple action steps, Stephanie has freed thousands of people from tweens to 82 from their anxiety, their stress, their fears, and she's here today to talk to us about how to say goodbye to anxiety and hello freedom. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, Diane, thank you so much for having me back. I so appreciate having a conversation with you.
And I appreciate you being here. You know, it's one thing. We're all stressed out at work. We have a lot of anxiety in our lives. But on top of that, in these times, there's even more stress and anxiety from our outer environment. So I'm happy you're here to talk to the busy professionals about stress and anxiety.
Thank you, Diane. And it's true. I think that we are in higher stress and higher anxiety levels than we ever have been in this country. And so I feel like even stronger that this mission of mine is to teach people that you don't have to manage or cope with anxiety, that you truly can get to the other side of it. I've done it. I've helped a lot of people do it. And it just takes a little small efforts, right? I really believe in the phrase that simple shifts create lasting change. So I'm all about teaching very simple strategies that you can do on a daily basis that you're a busy professional. Oh, I don't have time. Yes, you do. And I can teach you ways that very quickly you can just, okay, do this, and keep your balance. One of the many hats that I wear is as a yoga teacher, and yoga is all about falling out of balance and bringing yourself back in. So we do that in a physical yoga class, but we can also do that emotionally too. We can just start to lose our balance emotionally. Oh, we can do this technique and bring ourselves right back. That's true freedom to me.
The word coping always is synonymous with anxiety or stress. Can you just share just some examples of what we can do in the midst of an anxiety attack or when we're feeling really stressed in our day?
So the first thing that we really need to understand is, I think we can agree that, we can't control what's going on around us. The only thing that we can control is whether we choose to react and stay stuck in that loop of reaction like we've been doing and, going into the anxiety, or to choose to respond. And the only way that we can start to choose to respond is to build the capacity for resilience. So it's not waiting until you're having an anxiety attack and say, okay, great, now what can I do? Because at that moment, you're like so far down that train, you're like You can't just like, oh, let me do this technique and come out of it. When you start using different techniques on a daily basis, something as simple as doing like a mental dress rehearsal, if you have a big meeting coming up and you're really anxious, whether it's a meeting with your boss or you're going to go make a pitch to somebody, we do these mental dress rehearsals of, oh my gosh, it's going to, they're going to do this and it's going to go this way. And we, do these dress rehearsals and get ourselves into a state before we've even walked in the door. When instead, what if we did that mental dress rehearsal of it going really well, of feeling self-confident, feeling calm and in control? Then that becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right, because what I hear you saying and describing is it's a lot of what we're telling ourselves.
Oh, yes.
In our head.
Right. And we go through these conversations. Like, have you ever, and I'm not asking you specifically, Diane,
right.
Just, overall, if we think about it, I would think almost all of us can say, yeah, I've had conversations in my head where it's da, 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 and I am so angry. And I haven't even actually spoken to the other person.
Exactly. It's that story that we've created in our heads, and that gets us all worked up and all strung out. And by the time, let's say we're presenting something, we're looking at the audience, and I'm speaking, from what I've heard from people as well as my own experiences in the past. They're judging me. Oh, look at that person. That person looked at me. So I'm stressed out.
Right. And so if we reverse it and we do the mental practice, if we can, let me just do a quick little exercise. And if you're listening to this and driving, please don't close your eyes and do this. But as long as you're not driving, close your eyes and imagine that I'm sitting across from you and I hold up my hand and I ask you to put your hand up against mine. And I start pushing on your hand. What are you going to do? You're going to push back. So then I'll say, okay, just put your hand down, but keep your eyes closed. And imagine that I take out a lemon. And it's not just any lemon, it's a Costco lemon. So it's like the size of a grapefruit, right? And imagine that yellow, pitty skin and the little pointy things on the side. And imagine that I roll it around on a cutting board and you can maybe start to smell some of the fragrance releasing from the lemon. Then imagine that I take a very sharp knife and I slice it in half. And maybe you can imagine some of that juice spraying and touching you. And you can smell that lemony goodness even more. And then imagine that you reach over and you pick up one of those halves and you bring it up under your nose and get a nice whiff of that lemony fragrance. And then imagine that you open your mouth and you take a big, juicy bite out of it. What just happened? What just happened, Diane? Chances are you puckered up, you started salivating, and we're not even in the same room. Just using our imagination. Our imagination is the language of the subconscious mind. So when we do those mental dress rehearsals of imagining that it's going to go wrong or it's going to go right, it's pretty much a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I hear you. Basically, you're bringing yourself present with the lemon, and that sharp, sour taste actually pulls your mind forward.
Right.
I love that. I wish I would have known this 30 years ago as a young, totally stressed out, anxiety filled.
You and me both, my dear. This is why this is my mission. This is not me just, pulling this out of the air. It's my journey that in 1995, I lost it. I literally was in my kitchen smashing a bag of Cheetos as my two young kids were sitting there crying because they never got junk food like that. And, maybe they were bickering. I don't know. It was something, so small and insignificant, but I was so stressed that I lost it pounding a bag of Cheetos as my kids cried, "Mommy, please stop." That's when I knew there's something that needs to be addressed here. And so I did what most people do when I went to the doctor and got a prescription. And it worked for a short time, and then it didn't. That's when I was like, okay, I need to figure out what's going on here and find a way out of this because the medication wasn't going to help me. So that's when I began this journey of finding all these holistic approaches to not just managing or coping with the anxiety, but truly getting to a place where I can say I am free of it. Do I get stressed sometimes? Yes, of course I do. But I've built up the resilience to know that when I do certain practices on a daily basis, then when life throws me a curveball, and it's going to, it's just part of life. When life throws me a curveball, I've already got enough of this resilience muscle built up that I can easily say, oh, okay, I need to do this. I've been married for 33 years, and through that time, my husband had a life-threatening, like literally life-threatening health challenge and almost died 12 to 15 times before he had a successful liver transplant, thank you. And we've been through a lot of job losses, and he went through another job loss recently, and this was the first time that I didn't freak out. It was definitely a shock, but rather than freaking out, I said, oh, okay, I got out my essential oils and I meditated and I did, the EFT tapping. I did what I needed to be able to hold my balance so that when he came home, he wasn't coming home to a freaked out, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He came home to a hug and, okay, honey, we're going to get through this together.
Because the reality is in the world, especially today, we will lose jobs. Things will happen. So it's not what happened as much as our reactions to it. This is what I'm hearing you say.
Whether it's a reaction or a response. And the response is where we come from our power. That's when we are in our power. Like, if you think about a response, that is so much more like standing in your power than a reaction, right?
Yes.
A reaction is putting your power out there. So when we build up this resilience, it's doing it on a daily basis. And I shared it with you before we started recording that I just put the finishing touches on my book. And there's over 30 different ways that I share to say goodbye anxiety, hello freedom. And it's not because you have to do all 30 of them. It's because one size doesn't fit all. So if I am teaching you EFT or tapping and it doesn't work for you, I better have some other ways that are going to help you.
So it's about having the tools so that whether we're at work or in our lives, dealing with our families, we have tools, reserves that we can bring forward in the midst of whatever's going on in our lives.
Exactly. Can I share a quick little thing we can do? You can do at work. You can do at home. You can do when you're driving. You can do it anywhere.
Yes, go right ahead.
Right. So this is called square breathing. So you can either, if you're sitting at a desk and you have a paper and pen, great. You can draw a square, or you can simply trace it with your finger on your desk, on your knee. Like you could do this on your knee under a conference table if you're sitting during a stressful meeting. And so what you do is you imagine you take your finger to the upper left-hand corner, and as you trace across the top, I'll explain it first and then I'll guide you through it. As you trace your finger across the top, you're inhaling to the count of 4. As you go down the outside part of that square, you're holding your breath to the count of 4. Then as you go across the bottom, you're exhaling to the count of 4. And then as you go back up, you're holding to the count of 4. So let me guide you through that a couple of times and notice how it feels. And you can do this eyes open, eyes closed. And before we start, just think about something that maybe could get you to feel a little bit of stress, because I want you to feel the stress and then I want you to feel the release for it. So again, we'll start at the upper left-hand corner of the square. And as we go across, we inhale 2, 3, 4, going down, hold 2, 3, 4 to the left, exhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. And now let your breath come back to its natural rhythm. And how did that feel for you, Diane?
Oh, that felt awesome. And I'm feeling very, very relaxed.
Yeah.
And this is what's so awesome, because if there's any one of you listening out there and you're having a stressful moment, or just to be proactive before you go into a meeting, this is what I love about podcast episodes. You can put this on your phone, on your computer, and just listen to Stephanie's techniques before your meeting, before you have to do a presentation, whatever you have to do in the workplace. Maybe you can listen on your drive home before you get in the door with the kids and the life that you have at home. Because for many of us, we have that life at work, but we also have another life at home. And a lot of us don't get to pick and choose what that will be. So this is awesome that you are here to give us these tools. So in the midst of chaos and anxiety and stress, that we can create some kind of inner peace muscle that we can call on when we need to.
Right. And so when we do these on a regular basis, whatever the different techniques resonate with you, when we do these on a daily basis, then when the big stuff comes and hits us like a wave, we don't go all the way down. We're able to just wobble a little bit and bring ourselves back into balance. That's why I really stress how important it is to do these on a daily basis, because if you take a book and it becomes self-help, shelf-help, how many books do you have on those sagging shelves where we go and buy the book or the program or whatever, and it sits up on the shelf? And then we don't change and we wonder why. I bought that book. Well, it's because you have to implement it. And when you put it up on the shelf and then life comes and throws you a curveball, you don't even remember that you have those tools at the ready.
And each time the challenge comes forward, it's a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
The impact may not be as detrimental as it may have felt the first time.
True.
Because you've practiced the tools to support yourself. So maybe the second thing that happens in life, because we know something's going to happen eventually, it's life. It's beautiful, it's up, but things happen. It's just life. So when that third time that challenge comes around, it's like, oh, okay, you're in solution mode. You're in solution mode, not necessarily just taking it all in where you're overcome with the stress, the anxiety, and everything else that comes with that.
Exactly, Diane. So another thing that I really on a bit of a bandwagon about is taking digital timeouts, because every week there seems to be another study that comes out showing that our devices are contributing to our high stress and anxiety. I saw something recently that was very, very sad about teenagers and how much time they're on screen, and that research study said that teens who are on screen more than 5 hours a day have a significantly higher chance of having markers that they are a suicide risk.
And I agree with that. Not only during the day, I have some young nieces and nephews. You can hear the pinging all night.
Right. And let me address the pinging, because this is really fascinating. I was at a conference in New York City called Mindfulness in America, and it brought together leaders from the tech industry and leaders from the mindfulness community. And Tony Fadell, who was the founder of the first iPod, and he also helped co-create the first 3 generations of the iPhone. He was there, and he was talking about how addictive our devices are, and that they are intentionally created to be addictive. And so all those pings and noises and notifications, they give us a dopamine hit. And when we get a dopamine hit, that feels so good. So we want to do it again. And so it becomes this loop, and they become addicting. Even when you swipe down on your phone, that mimics the one-armed bandit at the casino. And so very interesting, this conversation was when I'm sitting in this auditorium, and he's talking about, the manufacturers of the devices, they need to address this and turn the notifications off. And I thought, I guess I have a different relationship with my phone than everybody else because my phone makes one sound. It has a little Zen chime, ding, when I get a phone call. That's it. I don't have any other notifications turned on, and I don't have any on my computer as well. And so that was so fascinating to me to really understand that I have a very different relationship than most people. So shortly after that, I asked a client to consider for 7 days turning all her notifications off. And that was just like, well, that was not going to happen for her. So I said, all right, let's go for 3 days. I think you can do anything for 3 days, right? So she said, all right, I'll turn off everything except for the texts because, if somebody really needs to get in touch with me, they'll text me. And so I said, all right, turn off everything else. And she said that first day was so difficult for her. It was so uncomfortable. But then by day 2, she started to say, I'm not feeling quite as wound up, quite as stressed as I used to. And so she has, I think, stuck to just the texts. If she's put anything back on, it's only been like maybe one more because she experienced what it felt like to not have that constant ping, ping, ping. And so I would invite people to think about, would you be willing for even just 24 hours? Turn the notifications off. Or if you can't go for 24 hours, can you go for half an hour and just shut your devices off and maybe do something that's good for you?
And I hear you when you say that. I have a lot of technology clients. I'm in and out of technology departments all the time in corporations, and that is huge. Even sitting in a meeting and having all these pings and pongs and rings, I always ask, especially my clients, if they, like you, put the phone on vibrate. That's the first thing I say. But I also notice just out in the world, whether I'm at the gym, whether I'm talking to a client, people are so distracted. It's almost like it's an iPhone ADD kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that adds to our stress and anxiety. So if this is one simple way to think, okay, I could just dial it back a little bit. I'm not asking everybody to just all of a sudden turn off all your notifications.
Right,
because,
right.
That's going from one extreme to the other. But consider cutting back on some of them, maybe turning some of the notifications off. Or when you go into a meeting, shut your phone off.
And also when you're thinking about, I don't have enough time, I'm so busy. Okay, my first question is, or second question is, how much time are you spending handling your device or emails, notifications, Facebook, social media? And when I hear, about 2 hours a day, that's a lot. So What can you do to peel back on the social media and whatever else you're doing and be more present in your life? Not advocating to, get rid of the phone, but what can you do to support yourself during the day? And one of the things I like to recommend, Stephanie, along with what you said, is that you pick certain times. For example, Facebook. Like I have myself on a 30-minute a day if I'm going to do it every day, but no more than 30 minutes at a time if it takes that long. Because what you find is you spend so much time on social media and the idea, like you said, with these device companies, the same way with food, right? Processed food, it's geared to keep you hooked. So part of my work and your work is to support people and help them to deprogram themselves from their phones.
And find balance.
Because it's work and you have to step up and do the work. And yes, it takes courage to do the work because maybe your family's like, well, I called you. You hear this? I called you. I text you and you didn't text me back or you didn't call me back. And what I'm saying today is I am not addicted to my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have my phone. Like, you remember in the olden days, I have to remind people.
I think we're dating ourselves, Diane.
Right. In the olden days, you heard the phone ring and you made the choice to let it go to voicemail or pick it up, depending on what you were doing. That's still relatable today. We have to get some control over our lives, or like you said, we will not have balance. It just won't happen in a vacuum.
Right. I totally agree with you, Diane.
Well, Stephanie, it has been so awesome that you're here talking about stress and anxiety, helping us to empower our lives with the tools and techniques that you've shared with us today. I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you for doing this podcast, because as a society, especially in the professional world, things are very out of balance these days. And so what you're doing is so important to help your listeners to learn that, they can easily find their way back to balance. And by bringing people, bringing your guests on to share different perspectives on how to find that balance. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that too, because this show is all about creating inner tools and strategies to help people live the life that they want. Mm-hmm. So you can break free of all the craziness, all the habits, and create, what you want for yourself. And that's why I have guests like you on here, is to show that you have the tools. You just need to learn what to do. So I'd like for you guys to look in the show notes, because Stephanie will have a free download called 5 Easy Ways to Calm Anxiety. And I'll have the link to her information in the show notes. And to learn more about Stephanie, you can also get her website information. That'll be listed in the show notes of this podcast episode as well. So if you found something of value from this episode of Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, I want you to share it with someone. Let me know the topics you would like to hear more about. Just put what you want or what you recommend in the comment section for this episode, because your feedback helps us to bring the best health and wellness conversations and topics that will support you in your busy lives. Thank you for listening. Get my new book, Jumpstart Your Life, Find Your Motivation, and Change Your Life One Step at a Time. This book has been released on Amazon.com and other online retailers. This book was inspired by my successful and life-changing workshops that I've been leading for over 10 years. I am now bringing my tools, techniques, and accountability structures straight to you. So if you're ready to take that first step towards the life you've always wanted, get the book and discover your capacity for success and attain your goals through a series of simple, powerful techniques. I also want you to join my private Facebook community called Jumpstart Your Life. Get resources, tips, as well as ideas as you integrate the Jumpstart Your Life process. I'll see you in the community.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please, feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.